So welcome to the Introduction to Metaphysics meetup with Doug Pratt. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Doug, and then we will let him take over as soon as I find it. So Doug Pratt is a licensed psychologist, and he's been working with people for over 30 years. And the thing that's so cool is he's rightfully called a spiritual architect, because he solely focuses on guiding clients to advance on their spiritual path. And he's trained with both past life regression and life between lives. And he's developed an incredibly unique approach to building connection with your spiritual team. And this really helps people with their spiritual awakenings. And I've had sessions with Doug, and I can't even recommend it strongly enough. Doug, are you going to tell them how you started this, or should I tell them?
Actually, I was going to do that today.
Then I will let you do it. So
Okay.
I will just put Doug's contact info in chat. And if you guys have any questions or anything in chat, can you keep it to the conversation? And thanks for coming. We're happy you're here. Let's wait till about 5 after, because people are still coming in.
Okay.
Really happy you're here, guys.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
We're excited to have you. And I'm happy to have Charity help. Charity from AZ, which a lot of you people belong to also. So I'm Introduction to Metaphysics. And this is the group. And then Barry from Awkwardly Zen was nice enough to suggest that we collaborate a little bit. So a lot of you people have signed up from Awkwardly Zen, which is pretty neat. So I'm beyond honored and delighted you had you here. Last week, just collaborating with Awkwardly Zen, 18 people joined the group. So that leads us to 3,825 people. So thank you for joining. Absolutely ecstatic that you're here. So I don't have anything else to say. I'll let you take over, Doug, if that's okay.
It's good. Well, let's start with greetings, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be here today. I really appreciate it. It gives me an opportunity to talk about something that I truly love, I'm very passionate about. So today, I'll give you a sequence of events. I think I'm going to start by talking about how I actually got here today. I thought that might be kind of fun. And then I'm going to go ahead and speak to Interlife Spiritual Journey and what it's about and how it's put together and it's the history that goes with that. And then after I speak about Interlife Spiritual Journey, there'll be a space in there for some questions. And then we'll go ahead and actually do a guided imagery. And it's basically the same guided imagery that I use in my Interlife Spiritual Journey. So you get to have a little experience and taste of that. And in that guided imagery, we'll make sure that you get to interact with your guides and have them send something back with you. And then we'll have you return to the here and now from that guided imagery. And then we'll go ahead and have additional questions, comments, thoughts at that point. All right. How did I get here? Well, let's see. About, I don't know if I want to count those years anymore. A while back, a long while back, when I was in my early 30s, I truly did roll down a mountainside 7.5 times in a car. And I really did think my life was ending in that moment. But as you can see, that was not the case. And what I was aware of after that wake-up moment is I had this incredibly strong experience of my grandmother who had passed the year before. And I could feel her holding and embracing me and protecting me as the vehicle rolled down the mountain. So that began my spiritual aha moment. And I began to then start searching out material information that I could find and books. At that point, my mind likes information. So I was looking for books. And I found them. There weren't a lot at that time. You found them in the occult section in the bookstores, which is interesting. And I began to read them. The ones by Jane Roberts, who channeled a being called Seth, I think are by far the most useful and most profound. They can be pretty dense at times as well, but I found them very useful. And then things moved along because I was now a professional clinical social worker in private practice. And I was running a very traditional private practice, while in my personal life, I was pursuing this interest in the non-physical world. And what in the world was that all about? And as far as I was concerned, I didn't have any connection with the non-physical world, but I was very interested in it. It would turn out that's not true, but I did not realize that at the time. I later then took, let's see what happened. I got an opportunity to do a group past life regression and encounter 2 different past lives in that session. And that was very powerful, very useful. And I continued to do my private practice, continued to do my traditional psychotherapy, and continued to read. And then eventually I began to look for people with like-mindedness and some colleagues. And I finally discovered a book that was written by a psychiatrist about past life therapy, and that was Brian Weiss. And for me, that was very exciting because here was somebody in the field who was actually talking about non-physical things. And that was really helpful because I thought maybe there were a few of my clients who had early trauma that I thought maybe past life work might be useful for. So I did that, and I continued to move along. And then I took an additional training from a man called Michael Newton. And it was the turning point for me because Michael Newton had done Life Between Lives. He used the stepping off point of a past life, but then he moved into the full non-physical. And then people actually go around touring the non-physical world and seen where the soul goes, where it resides. And that was incredibly eye-opening for me. And I began to offer those standalone sessions, past life sessions and Life Between Lives. Now, at this point, I then had 2 business cards, one with traditional work listed on it, and then a separate card that listed my psychospiritual work. And that continued for a very, very long time, between 15 and 20 years. And slowly, my connection to spirit got different and got better through a lot of meditating. And I began to understand that my primary connection with spirit is through my intuition. So I would feel things and they would turn into words in my mind, but they were, in fact, communications I was getting through spirit, through my intuition. And so through a lot of meditation and moving quite along, I eventually would hear a word. And that went on for a long time. And eventually it turned into a phrase, a few words together. And then finally, more recently, in the last 5 years, maybe, I've been able to hear a full sentence and maybe even a paragraph. But that isn't where I started. I had no awareness of my connection. I thought I was the most brilliant therapist on the planet. I was just so smart and so brilliant because I knew exactly what I was doing and all these wonderful interventions and helping people heal. And the realization was that, yes, I was doing those things, but that was not coming from my mind. It was coming from spirit through my intuition. And that was an important aha moment. It was also very humbling for my mind, but it was important because it was a realization how much I was getting through spirit and not realizing it all. And of course, things started fleshing out, and I began to realize I had a spiritual guide, but I also had a spiritual team. And that's become more apparent to me in the last couple of years as I work with folks. And eventually I took the Life Between Lives work and I kind of modified it into Interlife Spiritual Journey. So that's what gets me here today, because in my meeting colleagues and like-minded people, I met Kandara, and she's been gracious enough to invite me to present to you folks. And here I am this morning. I just wanted you to hear that I didn't start out with all this understanding and connection with spirit. It's come to that, but it did not start that way. And it's been an interesting, arduous path for me. All right. I talked about Michael Newton. Michael Newton did over 6,000 life between life sessions, which were all 4-hour sessions before he began to write his books. His first book is called Journey of Souls, and his second book is called Destiny of Souls. And they are very engaging and interesting reading if you're so inclined. All right, let's talk a little bit about Interlife Spiritual Journey, how I came up with such a wonderful phrase that flows right off the tongue, like for nobody. Inner life. That's that place, the non-physical world where our soul resides, where souls reside, higher selves reside. And in fact, we reside there when we are not in a physical life, but we also go there in our sleep. And we might even go there when we're taking a shower. So, but that's the non-physical world. And it is a place where actually we, in truth, call home. In the physical world, we have a place we call home, but the non-physical world is where we truly call home. Spiritual, well, that's what we're working on. It's why you're here. It's what are we about? What is my path? What's my purpose? Who am I truly? What's the bigger me? And then journey. If you look it up, it's going from just one place to another. And that's exactly true for an inner life spiritual journey. You go from one place to the other. You start in a waking state, either in my office or these days on Zoom, move through having a journey going into connecting with non-physical experience and beings, and then eventually returning to the here and now and back into your waking life. And it's a journey. What I like about the inner life spiritual journey is I never know where it's going to go, what it's going to encounter, what it's going to be about. Because each of us is different, and each of us is different about what we're working on today. And so that journey is guided by our spiritual team, and as such, is very specific to what you need in this moment at this time. The inner life spiritual journey is, in fact, a doorway, a method, a means to get into the non-physical world. So you can think of it as, I mean, that phrase I said is awkward. Basically, it's a gateway, creates a gateway using guided imagery. One of the things that we have going on for us is we have this thing called the mind and an ego, and they're very powerful. And the problem with mind and ego is that their job is to protect us and keep us safe and keep us intact. The truth is that at this point, they filter out many things that could be valuable and useful to us because of their longstanding pattern of behavior. So it's part of why we end up using guided imagery, getting you into an altered state, because it decreases the filtering of your mind and ego. So that's why it's so imperative that we use that, because otherwise we unconsciously filter stuff out. And it's not even conscious for us, it just happens. Let's talk a little bit about guides. For sure, we all have a spiritual guide, a guide that's been with us throughout all of our incarnations, through all of our lives. This guide knows us well, and knows what we're working on, knows what we have worked on, and knows what our challenges and our paths in this life are. What I'd like to remind people is that these guides hold only love, unconditional love and compassion for us. They do not hold judgment. They are not critical. It does not serve. So if that is a concern or a fear, know that that is just that. It's a fear. It's our projection onto them, because we're really good at being critical and judgmental. It's part of our being put together with ego and mind. So just know that they really do want to guide and support. So as we move into a session, part of the goal of it is to help clear things that are in the way, clutter, debris, emotional baggage. And as we move into the session, sometimes those things present themselves. And that's just fine. Because of my background as a psychotherapist, I'm very comfortable to encounter those kinds of things. They're not an impediment to the session, they're just part of. And for some folks, the block of getting um, into an altered state is the work that we then do, because that's the beginning and the important work that needs to be done in that session. And that just presents itself as we move along. All right, and in an actual inner life spiritual journey, what's the story here? So we start out meeting each other in my office or on Zoom, get a little bit familiar with each other, and then we go ahead and do that guided imagery, the very same guided imagery that I'm going to do later in this presentation. And in that guided imagery, we help folks move into a nice altered state, calm, at ease, and we bring them to a personal sacred space. It is a space that is theirs and theirs alone, safe, protected, and full of wisdom. And this may be a space that people go to in their meditation all the time, or it might be new today. It's fine. What matters is it's theirs and theirs alone and safe and protected. And it is from this space that we do the actual work. I always invite Archangel Michael to be present in these sessions because he can provide protection, support, and guidance as might be necessary. So we go ahead then once we've got you in a nice comfy space in your sacred space, we invite your spiritual team, with your permission, to come forward and join you. And that team then steps forward in some way, shape, or form. And for everybody, it's different. It's rarely technicolor. You may see something. More likely, you'll feel or sense or get a communication telepathically. You never know. And so again, I always leave that open to folks, that let it be however it presents, because that's all that matters. And we bring in those guides, and as we bring the guides in and they begin to communicate with my client, it becomes a session that is in fact being given direction and intention by the guides themselves, the experts. Why not use them? They know you the best, and they know what you need the most and the best in this very moment. So we turn it over to them to begin to move the session. Okay. Some of the places you might go that your team may take you to. One is called the primary soul group. The primary soul group is that group which a group of souls live with, train with, learn with when they're not in a life. And actually a part of them stays there even when we're in a life. So this is a group that you're very familiar with, and it not unlikely that some of the folks in your life that have been important to you come from this primary soul group. It could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, a very best friend. Those are all possibilities. The one example I always like to share is the possibility of the person that will be in this primary group who's not Aunt Minnie, and it's the person that you go, what? They're here? Oh, I can't stand this person. They drive me crazy. Oh, why in the world would they be in my primary soul group? It's a wonderful question, and it's really fun to get it answered, because what you do is you take, I have that client then talk with that person, that being, and find out what the story is. Because what it's going to turn out to be is that this being who's in their primary soul group is doing this by agreement with that client. It's all by agreement, that there's specific things the client needs to learn, and they've agreed that they're going to play out this role to help them learn these things. So it gives kind of a meta understanding of the relationship. And it usually changes then in the physical as well, because I understand there's purpose beyond than just driving them crazy and being a real pain in the neck. Sometimes they take you to a past life to show you something about a past life, either something that needs to be taken care of or something to be learned from. And the other is that they may take you to your soul council. The soul council. The soul council is a group of advanced beings of light whose job is to be a counsel to you and your soul and your higher self as you work on different lives, working on the paths and the purposes and the intention of the life. So the soul counsel is very intimately involved in creating and putting the life together and then reviewing it when you come back. So what will I give you now? I know what I'll do. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of being taken to some past lives in a Interlife Spiritual Journey. So what I'm wanting you to hear is this: the guides are choosing to go to these past lives. So it's not an intention that's set prior to the session. It happens within the session for the most part. And the first one is a male client who comes in paralyzed, presenting to a group of people. Now, this particular male client happens to be me. So I'm sharing you an experience I had several years ago working with my spiritual team. I had a terrible time going and presenting to a large group and really got paralyzed and terrified. And I had no clue why, because I could do one-to-ones and was quite articulate. So what happened is I went ahead and did one for myself. So I did some self-hypnosis, guided myself into my sacred space. And I said to my team in my inimitable cryptic way, what's the story here? Why in the world am I having this trouble talking to these groups of people? Took me by the hand and I go, okay. And they took me by the hand and they took me to a past life where I was observing it. I was not in it. I was observing and watching it. So this aspect of me is talking to in the middle of a town square to a group of people. He is passionate about what he thinks and believes, and he feels very strongly about it. And apparently the things he's speaking to do not run well with significant people in that group, despite his passion. And before that life is over, he actually loses his life because of speaking his truth and staying to that in the passion. And he ends up dying for that. Well, that explained why I was having terror about talking to a group of people. I was carrying that forward with me, totally unconscious. We then took that aspect of me who had died at that time and got him to release and give up all the rage he had and the self-righteousness he had about his death. He was holding on to it so dearly because he was so upset. And it was also a way to protect himself from the grief of the loss of the life. So we got him to agree to let Archangel Michael hold the anger. And then while Michael held the anger, we asked this aspect and see how he felt. And suddenly he realized he felt a whole bunch of different feelings that he hadn't felt before. And he felt warmth and connection, and he thought about his family that he missed, that he hadn't seen since that life. So we got agreement from him to have it. Not only could Archangel Michael take the anger, but would he also let him take the terror, the fear that he held underneath that. So Archangel Michael was able to take all of that, and in doing so, this aspect suddenly had his heart space open and it was truly clear. And I said, do you mind if we bring your family from that life in? Because I could feel they were on the edge of this work. So we brought in that family from that life and his spouse, and he was beyond ecstatic. Lots of tears, lots of reconnection, reconciliation. So this is what happened because of how he held on to that anger and self-righteousness and then the terror underneath it. He lost connection to the beings from his life, and that was then reestablished. So this person, me, no longer has terror or is paralyzed speaking to groups of people. I do get anxious, but I don't get terrified and can't speak. So that's one example. I give you one more. This one's kind of a fun one. This is one that was it just happened. It wasn't something that was intentional. despite unlike mine where I requested this information. This was a woman who was an artist, a good artist. So she says, what's going on? They're taking me by the hand. I said, okay, where are they taking you? Well, I don't know. Well, I'm somewhere where it's really hot. Okay. Would you look down at your legs and your feet? Tell me what you see. Well, I see big, heavy boots and big, heavy leather trousers. And I'm wearing a very, very big leather apron. I'm definitely a man. I go, okay, well, look around. What's going on with all the heat you feel? She goes, oh, I'm in a blacksmithery. I go, okay. And she goes, I'm a man, and I'm really, really strong. And this is what I do. I am a blacksmith. And she goes on to realize that she's a blacksmith, and she's a village blacksmith, and he loves doing what he does. He's good at it. He repairs things, he makes things. And he does this on his own by himself, working in his hearth and with these pieces of iron, and makes them into different things. And it's like, oh, okay. So now we know we have a life here, really competent, really talented, and does it by himself. So it's like, okay. So why? The question becomes, why are they showing this to you? What's the story here? And they go, okay, let us tell you. And they shared, you have a misbelief. You believe that you only paint well when you're with other painters, when you're in a group, when you're collaborating, when you're collegial. That is one way you do paint, but it is not by far the only way you can paint. And we would like you to see that you can take this experience and learning from this life and take it into your life today, and that you can be quite a talented painter when you paint by yourself as well. And so in truth, that is what happened. It gave her the understanding that she could paint both with herself and with others. And that changed the whole framework of how she saw herself in her art. And that was fun because it just happened. Okay. So now that I've rattled on for a while, this is a good spot to see if there's any questions about the Interlife Spiritual Journey part of this before I move us into the actual guided imagery.
Okay, thank you, Douglas. This is beyond incredible. So if people have questions, if you just want to go to where it says reactions and raise your hands, Charity will keep track of that. And if you are on a phone and can't do that, you can also text it and chat. So take it away, Charity, once they have questions. I have a question in the meantime while we're waiting for hands. Do people often need a series of sessions to deal with things if it's one or two big things?
You'd think I would have thought you would. I will say that the truth is at least 50% of the people leave the session with what they needed and don't need a follow-up.
Wow, okay.
Others need a follow-up, and they may be even given that guidance from their team that they need to, get back together with me in the next X amount of time, 2 weeks, a month, whatever, and reconvene for another session. So that happens some as well.
It's very interesting. I know my session with you was incredibly helpful. Looks like nobody's got questions. I think you've done a really good job of explaining what we.
Kandar, I have a question.
Oh, okay, sure. Oh, I can see your little tiny hand, Charity.
I know. I was gonna say, could you what would you recommend to people if they're not sure if they should do a past life or a life in between lives session, like the benefits versus one versus the other, maybe in a way that makes sense?
Part of what I'll be honest, I usually ask people to talk to me before I even do a session. So I either chat on the phone or do a quick Zoom session and try and sort that out. The question I always ask is, what are you truly after? What is it you truly want? What are you really pursuing? almost across the board, people are wanting to know about path and purpose. And are they on it, where they are in their life with it? And that, all honesty, then easily moves to the Interlife Spiritual Journey. And if somebody has a true past life question, and that is their focus, then we would in fact do a past life session instead. So that's how I kind of delineate that. And it seems to work pretty well, because part of it is it's too hard to know when you're trying to learn all this stuff about the non-physical world and all the aspects. It's overwhelming. So when you start to think, well, gosh, this might be interesting, it's like, I don't even know what I would ask for. And the good news is you don't have to, because your guides know. That's what they're very excited. They're always very excited to get to meet you face to face. And they love being able to have that opportunity. So I just share that in addition to that.
Thank you. We do have two questions. Kelly's got a question, and then after that, before Sophia had a question. Sorry, Kelly. And then Kelly's got a question for you. Sophia wanted to know what your grandmother looked like when you were, did she look like an angel, or did she look like your grandmother, or what'd she look like?
It's a really good question. And the answer is, I don't know. I'm not visual. I don't get visual information easily. So what I can tell you is I could feel her wrapped around me like in a bear hug. And that's funny, because I don't think she was 5 feet tall, but that was my experience of her. So when I see her now, because I can kind of see, I see her as she was at the end of my life. And that may well be a projection. That may not at all be how she presents truly. I'm not sure about that, but it's a good question. So for me, my grandmother, it was truly an intuitive feeling, sensory experience.
Thank you. And then Kelly, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I'm doing my little hand. So I had a past life regression recently, maybe like a few weeks ago, and it was my first one, but it felt like I was just kind of saying the first thing that came to mind. So like, how do I know the difference? I almost didn't trust what I was saying. And I will say that I was uncomfortable, like temperature wise, I was really cold. So I was just kind of like, just ready to kind of go. So that definitely could have affected the session. But I was saying things that kind of came to mind, like kind of like was see it in my mind's eye. But it didn't really feel authentic. So how do you know what you're seeing is actually a past life?
It's a very good question. It's a hard one to answer in a definitive way. Kelly, it's a common experience for people, particularly in those first couple of sessions, because our mind is in there. It's like, really, this you're making this up. A lot of doubt slips in there, so it's hard to trust, even though what you're getting probably is fairly accurate, particularly if it's coming first thing. In other words, first thing tells me it's coming in before your filters get in the way. So there's probably, I'm not saying it's all 100% accurate. I'm not sure that's ever true, but it probably was more accurate than your mind will let you believe. The more you do these kinds of things where you move into that altered state with some guidance, the more comfortable you get, and the more you're able to understand if in fact this is coming from your mind and ego, or it's coming from the experience. So that's a roundabout way of trying to answer your question. There's no litmus test that truly tells you, but if it's not what you're trying to figure out, excuse me, if it's coming from your mind, or in fact it's coming from some other place, like through your solar plexus or your heart. And that's the best way I know to try and make a distinction.
Thank you.
Oh, sure.
I'm muted. Cam has a question, and then Maxine has a question for you.
Okay.
So Cam wanted you to repeat something. If that was, you mentioned two groups, and the two spirit groups, and what they consist of, and wanted to know if you could please repeat that.
2 spirit groups.
Can you repeat the 2 spirit groups that you taught? Did you talk about 2 spirit groups?
Yeah, you were talking about he was talking about the your soul group and then the spirit guide, the spirit council. I think that's
Thank
what
you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Charity.
I did. You're right. The primary soul group is a group of souls that are basically at the same vibrational level, the same learning level that you are. And you've been together a long time, usually, working and learning and growing. And you're very familiar with each other, and you agree to do different roles for each other in different lives. So that's a small group of folks, and we were talking about that earlier. I don't know, half a dozen maybe. I've seen more than that, but it's not a large group. And you agree to do different roles for each other and doing different lives and different things. So that's your primary soul group. The soul council, on the other hand, very different function, very different group. The soul council is very advanced beings of light whose sole job, soul, S-O-L-E, is to assist you with the designing and putting together lives, and in other words, designing the purposes in the past and the things that you're going to be involved with in a general kind of way. So they know what you're working on. Maybe you're working on opening your heart space. Maybe that's a hard one for you. So you may have lives that are designed to help with that learning and that doing. And that primary soul group, the beings, ascended beings of light, that's what they're about. They're just there to assist you with that, help your higher self and help your soul design that life, put it together. And then after you finish the life, you've crossed back over, you go back with your spirit guide, and you go back to that soul council and you review the life. In other words, and very, very succinctly, very directly, how did you do with what you intended to do? What did you learn? What do you still need to learn? And so they go through that with you, and you're basically setting the premise, whenever that will occur, for that next life. So that's their role, very different than the role of your primary soul group. So I hope that helps break them apart better for you.
And Maxine has a question, and then after that, someone else has a question. If you folks just want to raise your hands, that would be great. But Adam's got a question after Maxine, so lots of questions. Maxine, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Oh, thank you so much, Kendara. Hello, Douglas.
Hello
Can
there.
you hear me okay?
I hear you well.
First of all, I want to express my gratitude for sharing your story. It's so moving and touching for me personally. Earlier this year, I had a self-imposed near-death experience, and I think most people in the group are aware of that. But as a result of that, I experienced a rebirth of unconditional love, and I feel it so strongly and want to be more effective in communicating that to people in a way that they can receive it. And I wanted to ask my guides, how do I go about doing that?
So is that something you're wanting to pursue with your guides?
Yes, that is my focus right now, Douglas.
So whatever methods you use, Maxine, for connecting with your guides, whether it's meditation, through your dreams, or both, start putting that out there very clearly. That is what you want to know about.
Okay.
Just keep putting it out there. I want to know how do I go about doing this? Tell me, show me, give me more so that I can begin to do that which I want to be able to do.
Okay.
And be
That's
open,
great.
because you never
Yes.
know how they're going to communicate back to you.
That's true.
It's
Yes.
just true, and they change. So they're always wanting to get our attention. So just be open. You never know how they're going to do it this time.
Well, recently I've been receiving guidance that the signs that I should be looking for will come in very subtle ways. And I'm a very dramatic person at heart. And I hope
Yeah, I get it.
On stage and in front of people, and very passionate about my art and creativity. And this time it's like, no, look for the subtle signs, look for the still small voice. And yet I'm also in the process of seeking to reunite with my soul community, and the guides that are coming along with these other individuals from my family are not so subtle.
Right, right.
And they are beginning. Yeah. So you get what I'm saying.
I do. I have one thought. Ask somebody in your soul team to help cue you in when a subtle sign comes forward.
I
Thank you
muted
so much,
Matthew,
Douglas.
because there was feedback.
Nope.
Good question. Adam had a question, and then Charity's got a question. So
Okay, I'm going to take a couple more, and then I think I should shift to the guided imagery soon.
okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I didn't know if Charity wanted to go first, because I think I saw her hand raised up. It doesn't matter to me.
No, go ahead. I'll wait till the end. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Douglas, I just had a general question of, I guess, how did you come about, this knowledge? Was it through like the books or experiences? Because I've heard this before, and I've always kind of wondered, where does this come from, right?
Yeah, and I get that. Adam, the answer is all of that. It was a progression of books. It was a progression of collaborating with like-minded people, getting some channeling from guides through some people who were very good at channeling. So it was multiple ways, and collaborating closely with a couple of very, very talented colleagues to help me understand and begin to believe in my ability to connect, and to begin to believe that I had a particular path to follow, and that I needed to start following that guidance, even if it came through a channel versus directly through me. I can get that guidance now directly, but that was certainly not the case in the past. I don't know, did that help answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Charity, do you want to go next? And then Douglas, you can just go back to your presentation.
I just
Okay.
thought it might be helpful. How do you explain to people that have never been hypnotized what being hypnotized is like? Because I think there's kind of a preconceived notion of what happens under hypnosis. And one thing
Yes.
I also just wanted to mention too is that actually getting cold is pretty normal, I think, when you're being hypnotized. Is that not? I mean, at least that's how it happens to me. I always get freezing cold. So I always recommend a blanket if someone's going to go under hypnosis.
Well, it's ironic, and this is going to sound sexist, but it's not meant to be. Men are fine, women get freezing. So I have a blanket in my office, and I've never, ever used it for a man. And I use it for all the ladies that come in because they get cold. So yes, absolutely. And I'm sorry, you had another part to your question. I've spaced it.
Well, I was just saying, like, for somebody that maybe has never been hypnotized, if you
Oh,
could kind of help
yes.
explain what it feels like so people don't have that preconceived notion.
Well, yes, thank you. It's an important question. And I do have people come in that have never been hypnotized before. What I do is first of all, I use altered state. I don't use hypnotized a lot because there's so many pejorative attachments to the word hypnotized. What I talk to people about is an altered state. And the truth of that is that everybody moves in an altered state. They don't call it that, but I know they do. Do you take a shower when the water runs over you? Almost everyone moves into an altered state when that happens. And the other example that I use is, did you stop at the stop sign before you came home today around the corner from your house? And people realize that they're sure they did, but they don't really have a real conscious memory of that. When we drive in a very predictable place, we move into an altered state. So my point is, we all do it. When I do it in guided imagery, I'm just guiding you into an altered state and giving you the ability to go a little deeper, but that you already are familiar with it is more than you think you are. So that's how I deal with folks around that, never having been hypnotized.
We've got other questions, but you said they could ask after you were done, because I know you want to do the guided journey and all that good.
Yeah, I'd like to do that soon anyway, for sure.
Kathy has a question. Do you want to?
Yeah, let's take Kathy's question, then
go
I'll
ahead,
switch
Kathy.
gears.
Not a question, but I just wanted to make a quick comment about the hypnosis, because I did a session with Douglas and I was very nervous about the whole hypnosis thing because of, what you see on TV, and I didn't want to, be clucking like a chicken on stage, so to speak. And so I was really nervous about that, but it really just felt like a deep meditative state. And I never felt like I was not in control. So if that's also your concern about doing it, then talk to Douglas later, but it was definitely not, I always felt like I was in control.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks,
Plug for
Kathy.
Douglas.
All right, let's go ahead and shift gears, and then feel free to ask those questions again after, and then you may have some additional ones as well. Let's go ahead and do the guided imagery. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for it. All right, so this is your opportunity to
Where's the taste of my mouth?
get into a comfortable position. Put your feet on the floor and get comfy. All right. Go ahead. Close your eyes. In your mind's eye, you were standing safely near a whirlpool. In this whirlpool are thoughts, concerns, worries, and doubts for yesterday, today, tomorrow. And they're all going around and around and around and around. And as they go around and around and around, I ask you to look about and look for additional thoughts, concerns, worries, and doubts. And as you find them, would you please put them in the whirlpool as well, so that they too circle around and around and around and around. And as they continue to circle around and around and around, would you go ahead and check about one last time and look for all remaining thoughts, concerns, worries, and doubts. And take them, every last one of them, and plunk them into the whirlpool so that they all circle around and around and around and around. And then as they're all just circling around and around and around, I'm going to ask you, if you would, please pull the plug and let them all disappear down the drain and be gone. And now, in your mind's eye, a circle, a ball of divine energy and light. And it's moving right over the top of your head, right over your crown chakra. And it's sending that energy and light, that divine energy and light, right out into your hair, into your scalp. And then it expands outward into your face, your forehead, your eyes, your nose, into your cheeks, and deeply into the muscles of your jaw, comforting, protecting, healing. And then the same energy and light moves outward into your throat and into your neck. And then it moves deeply into the muscles of your shoulders, comforting, protecting, healing. And then the same energy and light moves out from your shoulders, and it follows the line of your spine down your back, your upper back, your shoulder blades, into and through your middle back, and all the way down to your lower back, to the very, very base of your spine, comforting, protecting, healing. And now this energy and light moves out from your shoulders and into your upper arms, into your biceps, into and through your elbows, down into your lower arms, forearms, into and through your wrists, and all the way down into your hands. The muscle, the bone, the tendons. Experience this divine energy and light as it radiates out to the very, very tips of your fingers, as it comforts, protects, and heals. And then the same energy and light moves out from your shoulders, moving into your chest, heart, lungs, your diaphragm, your stomach, as it comforts, protects, heals. And then the same energy and light expands outward, moving down into your lower abdomen and all your internal organs, connecting tissue, muscle. And then it just continues to expand outward, moving into your legs, and then deeply into your thighs, comforting, protecting, healing. And then it moves through your knees and down into your lower legs, your shins and your calves. Then into and through your ankles and all the way down into your feet, comforting, protecting, healing as it radiates to the ends of your toes. And now in your mind's eye, that circle, that ball of divine energy and light, let it expand, let it grow, let it get large enough for you to step through, and then go ahead and do so. As you step in, the front of you is coated with the same energy and light. As you step through and out, the back of you is coated as well. And now experience having every cell in your body, inside and outside, completely immersed in this comforting, protecting, healing, divine energy and light. And now we want to call on those beings of light that have your interests 100% at heart. Your spiritual guide or guides, spiritual team, your higher self. And I always call on Archangel Michael as well. And I ask them to be with you for the remaining part of this session. So go ahead. Now you find yourself just moving forward a little bit, moving forward to a set of steps. Now these steps are going to take you to your personal sacred space. It is a space that you may have gone to many times in meditation, or it may be new today. What matters is it's yours alone, and sacred, totally protected, absolutely safe, and full of wisdom. So come on up to those steps, and I'm going to count them for you. And just know that with each step, you're going to be able to become even more at ease, more comfortable than the step before. 1, easier, easier, deeper and easier. 2, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 3, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 4, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 5, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 6, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper still. 7, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 8, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper still. 9, deeper, deeper, easier and deeper. 10, deep, deeper, deepest. You're now at the door to your sacred space. Come on up to it, open it, step through, close that door behind you, and move into your personal sacred space. Feel the air on your skin, cool, warm, or just right. Notice the smells, the aroma that goes with this special place. Pick up on the sounds or the quiet and experience line, shape, form, color, light, shadow. And let all of these just bring you in deeper as you fully experience this wonderful personal sacred space. And I'm going to ask Archangel Michael to come forward and join you in your space. And I'm asking him to place his hand on your heart space. And as he does so, he begins to infuse your heart space with this divine energy and light. Warm, loving, unconditional, compassionate, light and energy, just filling up your heart space more and more and more and more, filling your heart space, every nook and cranny, more and more and more. Feel that warmth just floating through your heart space. And it gets so full, it begins to brim over. And as it does so, this divine energy and light moves upward through your neck and throat, right up through your head to the very top of your head. And as it spills over, it moves downward, down through your torso, down into your legs, all the way down, down to the very ends of your toes. And now feel yourself completely infused with this divine energy and light. Feel the warmth, the compassion, the love, the ease of being in this space and filled with this wonderful energy and light. And now what I'd like to do is to invite your spiritual team to join you. Know that your team is comprised of your spiritual guide, fairies maybe, angels possibly, even possibly interstellars. And just know it's all a team of beings who hold you in the highest esteem, the highest accord, and love you very, very deeply, and absolutely hold no judgment for you. So I'm inviting them to begin to get ready to come in. I'm going to go ahead and count back from 5. At the count of 1, your team is going to present to you. Please know that you may experience this team in many, many different ways that will be specific to you and your team. You may feel a touch on your elbow, a brush on your shoulder, a communication telepathically. You might hear a word. or you might just have a sense of their presence. Just know that they're there, coming in through your intuition. Trust all of these and any of these as being the way that you are connecting with your team. Your team very much loves to connect with you, and I know they're very enthusiastic to do so. So at the count of 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin to experience their presence and how they're presenting to you. If you're having a difficulty with the sense of them, just trust that they're there, because they are. They want to be there. Just be with that. You may sense them. You might feel them. You might feel warmth. And have a sense for maybe how many beings are in the group, and whether they're just in front of you, or they're around you, or above you. Any of those are possibilities. But just trust that this is your spiritual team that is here to help you on your spiritual path and assist with your spiritual awakening, and that they are with you 24/7, even when you sleep, and even when you forget that they're there, they remain so. So just feel their presence, feel that love and that warmth, and know that they are there for you and you alone. So what I'm going to do now, as you experience your spiritual team and you're interacting with them, I'm asking them to give you a gift. It is a gift that you are going to be able to return to this here and now with. It may be an object, it may be a thought, it may be an experience, something they'll show you. But I'm asking you to just be open and let your team provide you with that gift that you'll be able to bring back with you in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to be quiet for just a minute or two while I allow you to have that interaction with your team and allow them to present that gift to you. Okay. So soon I'm going to bring you back to the here and now, but I ask you to definitely bring that gift back with you. If it's an object, put it right under your arm. If it's something else, bring it with you as well. So before I have you come back, would you go ahead and have your, say you have your goodbye with your team. give you a moment to just say goodbye and see if there's any final communications that they would like to give you before you return to that here and now. All right. So go ahead and say your goodbye to your team for right now. And what you find at the edge of your sacred space is a gate. This is a gate that takes you back to the here and now. So with your gift with you, come on up to that gate. Go ahead and open it. Step through, close the gate behind you, and step back into the here and now. And let's just start with some roots growing right out of the soles of your feet, going right through the floor, right through the building, right into the soil, right into the dirt, right into the ground, and growing downward all the way down to the bedrock. And these roots are wrapping around that bedrock more and more, and they're pulling you back into your body so that you're fully returned into your body. And I'm going to count to 5. And at the count of 5, you'll open your eyes, feeling refreshed and relaxed, remembering everything from your time away, and fully returned to your body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead and open your eyes. Feel your toes and your fingers and your body again, and return to the here and now. And I'm happy to entertain questions as you have them or whatever, and comments too. Anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, if you folks want to raise
This
your
could be pretty
hands.
interesting. So that's great as well.
This was incredible. Thank you so much for doing it. Everybody's nodding and looks relaxed. And
Mhm.
first word I got was patience. That's my gift because God knows I need it, they said. But then they also said just to trust the process. So it was really beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's comments? Okay, Lauren's got her hand up. Lauren, do you want to unmute and share?
Thank you. Hi, my name's Lauren. Wonderful meditation. It's just really too much to really talk about, but I felt a ton of anxiety when I was there. And at one point, what I got was that I'm just not ready to go to the next level that I have been trying to get to for my whole life, and that I'm just still not ready. And I really was looking for an answer about why I'm not there yet. And I think I got my answer. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you got that, and you're so welcome.
Adam has his hand up. I keep muting and then talking. Adam, do you want to lower your unmute and all that good stuff?
Oh yeah, I want to say thank you, Douglas. That was phenomenal. My experience was more visual.
Mhm.
And I wanted to share something. So what was interesting, one of the gifts that I got, well, when I first met the team, I started getting like, it's a very interesting visual. At first it was like this kind of like Black female. I saw her face, very strong. But then it was like, there were different parts of her that were also animalistic, and it was very interesting. And then one of the gifts that they gave me was, I kind of have in my hand, which I'll kind of share. If there's any Harry Potter fans, this is the golden snitch. And what's interesting about it is like, it was handed to me and it became an armor in my being. So it was almost kind of like this, and then it became like a whole visual armor in me. And my message was love, and also something that, you know, a medical thing. It was the message that it's going to be okay. So that was wonderful. Thank you.
That's great. You're welcome.
Oh, Charity has her hand up.
I just wonder, is there ever a time where, like, for some reason, I can visualize really well, and I've done past life regressions numerous times, but whenever it comes to meeting my guides, it's like blank slate. Like, even when you were doing that guided meditation, like the moment like Archangel Michael like touched me, like I even got wings, like I could see my sacred space. But the moment you're like, invite your spirit guides, and then it's like nothing. I couldn't see my gift, but then at the end, I can see myself opening the gate and holding a box. But during the time that ever I enter, and I've never been able to connect with them, and not in just this, but anytime, every time, it's just like, is there a time that they don't want you to see them or something?
It's you know, I can't tell you that's not true, because guides are very specific to your experience. Okay. So I want you to hear that. Part of what I would do if we were working individually, what I would do is I would explore that enough to figure out whether they're in fact, in other words, why are you not seeing your guides? Is it because they don't want to present themselves? Or is there something in the way? And we would then break it down to figure out which way it goes, because that's a whole series of questions and pursuings to figure out if there's actually a block, and it will be unconscious. I mean, it will not be a conscious block, but in that state, we might be able to at least discover if that's the case, or your guides just don't feel that it's necessary to present to you in a visual way. So it's a good question, and that would be what I would do, because in other words, it's an important one, and I don't know. I don't have any idea.
No.
Good question, though. Really good.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and you're not the first to have that experience. So it becomes a point of exploration.
Lori's got a question for you. Lori Baker. I think we might have more than one Lori.
Hi, Douglas. Thank you
Hi.
so much for this experience. I don't really have a question, but I have to share this with you. Years ago, I had a dream where I was birthing an orb of, well, it started with really slow moving smoke inside, but it had no exterior boundary yet. It was contained, self-contained, and it exploded into light. And I had in this vision, there were three, I hesitate to call them figures. They were really more like clear gelatin that shone and sparkled a little bit. They came to witness the birth of my orb. So in this visualization today, my visualization went upward. We were around a campfire with huge boulders and tree branches that people can gather around this ancient bonfire, if you will. And so instead of a drain going down, mine was circling tendrils of smoke going upward and outward into space. And I was, last week, I was actually out sunbathing, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw something like a figure 4, and it had a circle on the top. And in this experience today, I've always wondered, what is this 4 looking thing? But the 4 is more like a triangle with the leg that goes down. And today, it reappeared for me, and the top circle on the 4 was my orb that I birthed. The 3 sides were the 3 witnesses. They were some sort of mighty angels that came. They were jubilant at the witnessing of the birth of my orb. And I was the other third corner coming down and over, which is I am an earthly being and my family. So thank you so much. There's more, but that brought so many things together for me. That was wonderful. And the thing that I brought back was a piece of charcoal. I'm an artist and I love wild colors. I'm known as a colorist. And yet I think I need to go paint or draw charcoal paintings on some brick walls, some primordial art, cave art kind of work. This is really fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing all that. It's wonderful.
Anyone else? This was really amazing. And this was, at least for me, it was like a semi-hypnotic feeling, you know. I can't recommend you highly enough, honestly. And you're just one of the best sessions and most helpful I've ever had. So I appreciate you. So next year, will you come back and do it again?
You betcha.
Thank you.
Douglas, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? We put your contact information, but is it by email or is it better to call you, or what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Whatever's most comfortable for them. Many people email me, some call, and some text. And I check all those different ways of communication. So whatever fits for you is fine with me.
And he does do sessions online and in person, so that everybody knows. So if you're not in the Denver area, you can do it online as well.
Right.
And I've had both, and they're both equally effective. People are thanking you, but they're not asking questions. So
It's okay.
I just let you take over.
Yeah, I added in the grounding piece of the tree growing out of your feet to try and help people return, because I was discovering that I was really getting good at getting people to be in an altered state, but having a hard time getting them coming back and getting returned. So I added that in to help.
I have one more question. I'm just wondering, is it true that you could do past life regression for, like, how you're talking about, like the blacksmith, like how she got those gifts, like kind of going back? But if you like, is there ways to, if you're going through, let's say, like trauma of some sort, where maybe you're dealing with a phobia or a fear and stuff, you can go back and kind of release those, right, with the past lives? Or if you need to go back and maybe get a gift of some sort, like maybe in a past life you were able to be more visual in your spirit guides, like that's something that could be kind of worked in, right? Or is that just a concept?
No, you know, if you do a past life session, you have more focus, because, and I mean, it can be as focused as, I have this past life I want to go to, that I keep having dreams about it. I mean, we will ask for that. Sometimes people aren't sure, and I'll say, well, how about if we ask for the most relevant past life that will help you today? So you give direction to the past life that might be most relevant to that person. So that certainly can do that. Just depending, it just depends on what has drawn them to want a past life. Right.
Sophia's got her hand up. Good question, Charity. Sophia, would you want to?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Doug. And thanks for this wonderful experience. So I didn't say anything, but I feel like very warm and calm. And the question I want to ask you is, like, for all these years you do this kind of job, what's the most helpful information you got from the other world?
You mean information that I got in doing a session with somebody else?
Or for yourself, I mean, in general.
Oh, well, certainly, I think what I would say to you is, it's been very helpful for me to and I've been guided this last summer, to be honest with you, to deal with and clear all my early trauma as a child, much of which was unconscious. And I was able to use this format as a way to get to those pieces and to identify them and to clear them. So that's kind of a big answer to your question, but that's kind of what comes to mind when you ask that.
So then you didn't feel like any trauma, past trauma in your life.
You mean that it's still there, you mean? It helped me clear the trauma so that it no longer is affecting my current life. Yes.
So for the people did the past life, in any case, they were like animals in the past life?
I have not had that memory or experience. I'm not saying that's not true. I don't know.
Oh.
I've had past lives where I've had pets that were with me in this life were with me in that life.
Mhm.
A dog that I had in this life, I discovered was my pet lion in another life.
Mm.
Yeah, hard to believe, but that's what I was told. I believe that. So that I've seen, but I haven't seen where I was incarnated as an animal. That doesn't mean it didn't happen in somewhere along the line, but I've never been given that. I'll have to check on that. It's a good question. It's a good question. I like that one. I have to check on that.
Thank you.
That's a great question. I
It
guess,
is.
Yun, am I saying it right? Is it Yun?
Yeah, it's Yun.
Yun, sorry, Yun. Yun has a question.
Yeah, no worries, Doug. It's a really beautiful experience. Thank you so much. I have two questions. First, this is my first session like this. How I felt was I was in and out of sleep, in and out of consciousness. So I wonder if that's how I'm supposed to feel. I feel perhaps I went to sleep. And then I hear your voice and I came out of sleep. Is that how I should interpret this, or?
You know, what I would say to you honestly is trust that whatever happened is what was meant to happen today. It's different for everybody in different times. And what I would also tell you is that you may think you went to sleep, and that may not be exactly what happened. There have been times when I thought I had gone to sleep in one of my own meditations, and what I was told later is that was not what occurred, but they were using that opportunity to give me downloads that I would need some other time. Not yet. I don't know when. So I just want you to hear that. It's just different for everybody. But so there's not a supposed to. It's just whatever happened, just trust that that's what needed to happen today.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm gonna keep experiencing and figuring out, yeah, what all of that meant. So my second question, I hope I'm not too cognitive. I might be, but this is a space to explore. So I notice my mind keep thinking, so to explore my past life, to explore, I guess, the journey in the past. Would that help my soul or my journey in my next incarnation? How is doing the work of my past shape the future where my soul would go in the next incarnation, or however in the future?
This is my impression. We have time here, but there is no time in the non-physical world. So anything we do to clear up something now can affect things that were and things that will be. So my comment is, it's very possible to change things both ways by doing work in either direction, including the current work.
Thank you. Yeah, so
Sure.
it's not linear, like how this physical life is.
I didn't hear the question.
So I was just echoing, I was thinking, my reflection is it's not linear like this world.
No, it's not.
It's
It is,
not.
no, it's not linear. You're correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
That was a fascinating question about how it could affect the future.
Yeah, I didn't used to understand that at all. I still don't understand having no time. I don't get it. But I do know that if I do work today on some piece that is carried by my familial line and I clear it, it will clear it for the whole familial line. So it's very powerful. And it also, and I'm sure it clears things forward as well. Yeah.
This is so helpful. And it's interesting how a lot of people are asking questions that other people may have on some level, and it's answering a lot of stuff. Someone's asking if familial line equals that's good, equals family line. Adam wanted to know that. Is it one and the same?
Yes. Yeah, it's your, you know, your grandma and great grandpa and great, I mean, all the way back. And it can be on both sides of the family, or a lot of the work I've done has been on the patrilineal side, father side. And it went back many, I don't know how many generations.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna let Kat go first, Jen, because she hasn't asked any, they haven't asked anything, and then you can go after that. So Kat and then Jen.
I had a question on the familial, what just got said. Is it in concrete that my familial line for this one will be it for this life is always my familial line? For instance, I've had past life regressions and shamanic journey type visions that indicate I'm not always a white person.
Okay, tell me, I lost the question.
My question is my familial line this time always my familial line? And the reason I ask that is because I've had dreams, visions, past life things that I'm not always a white person.
Right. You know, the generational piece doesn't mean you were in all those generations. It just means that there's a familial generational piece. So you could, yes, you could certainly be in a past life where you were definitely a different ethnicity, different country, different language. Any of those are possibilities. And you would have a familial line with that life.
Okay. And so I guess it's a two-parter then. So how do, let's say, ethnic crossings from other lifetimes affect it in this lifetime? Like, for instance, would I have friends and or people that are around me close that are not necessarily my same ethnicity, but we are a soul family from another lifetime?
Right. Sure. Absolutely. Because you're connected at the soul level. And at the soul level, there is no such thing. We're all souls. So yes, for sure.
I guess then I'm going to throw one more third part in there. Could that maybe explain why sometimes I have a bigger, stronger connection to my friends than my bloodline?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that was a succinct answer, but yeah, for sure. Okay. We have all sorts of different connections and strong connections. Your primary soul group, maybe none of your family members are in that group.
I believe that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, right. And sometimes there actually souls make that choice for very specific reasons. Certainly, I don't know what they would be for you, but I want you to hear that happens.
Right. No, I do know that. I know that the things we're dealing with in this lifetime are contracts we accepted for past lives. Right. The reason why we're here and all that, which makes complete sense why my life this time has been completely tormented by everybody in my family with my same color skin. But people who don't have my color skin, I resonate really strong and really well with. So thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. And then Yoon does have a question, but Lynn also said that changing sexes and races is pretty documented in Stevenson's research on reincarnation. Are you familiar with Stevenson's research on reincarnation?
I did read it a long time ago. It's Ian Stevenson. He was an MD.
Okay.
And I think it's a book like something like on on reincarnation of, I can't remember. He basically went through and documented people, I think in India, in the Far East, and their lives, children, and then went to the village where they said they were in a different life, and was able to document that. So he could actually prove that the reincarnation had occurred, because the children had information that they couldn't possibly have about it, something that had occurred in another place. So it was very fascinating research, and I think somebody he trained is continued that research, whose name escapes me.
Thank you. And I Googled it while you were talking, and he's written a bunch of books on it.
Mm-hmm.
So Yoon has a question, and then Lynn has a question or comment. So Yoon, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So Doug, I recently heard from a friend that especially for women, that we chose our mother. I guess before before we go to the next life, we choose who we want to be as our mother, and that shows what kind of work that I need to do in the next life. I wonder if you heard about that and you have any thoughts about that theory.
I think that we do choose parents, we choose families. I want you to hear that. I don't know about the implications about that, certainly for future lives. I don't know.
But if you mentioned we choose our parents, which means our soul, I guess before we go to the next life, we decide who we're going to be born into.
Right. And it will be integrated into the soul purpose and soul path. And I mean, it's complex, but that's why you have a soul council to help sort that out and make the best decisions on which family, which parents, which mother, which father, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. My next question related to this is that our spiritual group or spiritual guide, is there ways we meet them, or it's not I'm purposely seeking for it? Just curious if we get to meet them in the physical world.
We're going to let other people ask questions, and then you can come back, because we've got like 4 people waiting, but we want to hear what you have to say. So will you, because we've got Lynn, and then we've got Charity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. But please ask again, because you're asking great questions. Okay, Lynn, do you want to, and then Teresa. Lynn?
Yes, I just wanted to speak about the reincarnation. I really looked up and kind of studied some of Ian Stevenson's work, and he interviewed and researched through sessions numerous people who have had childhood experience of reincarnation. One of the people was Anne Frank. She was reincarnated as Barbara Collins or something like that, Carlin, and she may be still alive. And she started having as a child premonitions of she wasn't who she was, and she actually, her parents went back to in Germany, where she was kept in a concentration camp, and she knew the address and everything. And then there's been other people who if they change races. And I think this one guy online was saying that the other lady was saying, I don't remember her name, that she felt this affinity for different races. This other guy, he's a white guy, he was he's always wanted to be involved in the civil rights movement, and he found that he was he was like a slave in his previous life. So there's numerous pieces of information online about all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he because he was an MD, he had a lot of training as a scientist, and he used that to help really document things, and would exclude possibilities that he felt did not meet the criteria for for research. So he was very careful on what cases he would even begin to look into.
That's fascinating. I guess Charity, and then Yoon, and then Trista.
Well, I was gonna say, I just want to mention it's 1:36. I don't know like how long you wanted this to go for, but
Two.
oh, it goes till 2. Okay, so no, I was just gonna say, even Stevenson is part of the Department of University of Virginia that has I think it's peripheral studies, and they're a department in the neuro department of medicine in the university study that literally dedicates this whole department to reincarnation. I know Brian Weiss also had some work with that college as well. If anybody like actually wants to study it, it's going to neurobiology, but it's quite fascinating. But also with even your ancestral lines or familial lines, you know, one thing that has been proven is that in epigenetics, we do bring in our trauma from our family line, whether we want to or not, but it does carry in our genetic line. So I think that sometimes even with those past life regressions, or whether it's your soul group or your family group, it's something that can be helped cleared out whether or not you asked for it or not. So just something to keep in mind.
Really good point. Like, so sometimes stuff will come up that they're not even coming to you for, right? And you clear that as well, it sounds like. Okay, I think Trista, no, we've got Yoon and then we've got Trista.
It's okay. I think I don't need to ask.
You don't? Okay, well, thank you. You have it. We've got time. Trista, do you have a question?
Yes. I was wondering, so is like how you took us through that the visualization, is that something that we're possible to do on our own, like at any time, or is it better to like listen to that, like someone else kind of guide you through it?
Different people do differently. One of the things I do when I meet with folks is I go through how they can replicate what we've done on their own.
Okay.
So there's no question that like what we did today, if it's something that really worked for you and you want to begin to use it, decide which pieces we did today you need to get back to your sacred space.
Yeah.
A lot of people pick the stairs, and some people use the whirlpool. It just depends what works for you. But the goal is to, if you can use it for yourself, to return to your sacred space, because if you can do that, then you have an opportunity to invite your team to join you there, and you can have interaction with your spiritual team, which is very valuable.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't quite get there. I don't know. I'm a very visual person, but I feel like I get a lot of like visual flashes of different things. And so it's just hard to like tell exactly what I'm getting,
Well, my comment is, try it yourself. And if that doesn't work well, then use some kind of guided meditation to find the one that works for you.
Yeah.
And use that as a tool to get back there, because that's really what the goal is.
Right. Yeah, because I've actually been trying really hard to open up communication with my guides, very much so lately, after I had a session with a medium and discovered that we had guides. So I didn't even know that.
Right. Well, just keep asking them. Keep asking them to help you. Keep putting
it's been getting better and better, but I'd still like to deepen it a lot more.
Stay with
but
it.
you give these sessions as well, right? Like that's what you do.
And
you can do them over Zoom or just phone calls or something.
Zoom.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
We've got time if you want to ask your question now, because we don't have any other questions. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. This is a different question, but it's something I've been searching for a long time. And there's not a specific question per se, but tied to Doug, what you mentioned earlier, our incarnation leads to our, I guess, spiritual path. And this leads to traditional term of meaning and purpose. Why am I put on this earth? What's my journey during this lifetime? And what's the ultimate, I guess, goal? But I know this is a very human, linear thinking.
I don't have a specific question, but I'm curious if you could chime on some thoughts, some work you've done about the meaning and purpose. Why are we doing this whole thing for?
Right. Well, that is the goal. The true goal of the Interlife Spiritual Journey is exactly that, is to answer as best we can in this moment. Why are you here? What are you up to? What is your purpose? How are you doing with your path? And what needs to happen to continue moving forward in your spiritual path and your spiritual awakening? So those are the questions that we hope that your spiritual team will address in whatever way that fits for you today.
Yes, thank you. If anybody else have any questions, please go ahead, interrupt me.
Yes, I do. Hello?
Go ahead, unmute and ask your question.
Now can come up past lives and vision we get from past lives. Usually I was able to obtain success through following what I believe were premonitions. So I kind of see myself being successful in doing the things that I want to do. Now that we have this discussion, I'm questioning whether it's past lives or premonitions. And I know he did mention that we can ask for the best past life that suits us. And so my question is, are we having premonitions, or are these past lives that we lived before that we're chasing?
So my response is it may well be both. Right. You might be getting what you're getting through your premonitions, maybe past life content or past life interaction or feeling or any of the above. So to me, they're all interwoven. They're not just one and the other.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought too, because some things you'll see and it's like I've done this before, and other things are like new to you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Stay with it. Stay with those premonitions and see if you can track them down and see if they are actually a past life that it has relevancy today.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
That's a good question. Anybody else got questions?
Yes, so I want to ask if we make appointment, like 2-hour session. So what if we, during the meditation, we don't get anything?
I'm sorry. What was the question part of that?
Question is, if we make the appointment, we do the, whatever the 2-hour session, but we don't get anything, any video picture or any message. So.
Oh, we record it. All sessions are recorded. Is that what
right,
you're
but during that session, we actually cannot be in that state, cannot get any, message from the other side.
I think she's asking if she was a scheduled appointment, if she wasn't able to get any messages or get into a meditative state that allowed her to get her answers, what would happen?
Oh, we would work on the meditative state. That would be the focus of our work. That happens. I get people coming in that really struggle with this. And that's fine. I just see it as part of our work together. And I work with them about what's the part of them that's uncomfortable, who's scared, who's not wanting this to move forward. You just you work with wherever they're at, and that's part of that as well. Because I do have people coming in that have trouble with moving into an altered state for whatever reasons.
But most of the people, they can move to that state, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
If I can make a comment on that, I think sometimes too, people have difficulties getting into meditative state because it's like their brain or their mind doesn't want to let go, right? Like they kind of hold on to it. So it's important when you go into it, kind of set that intention that you're going to allow yourself, because meditation was difficult for me in the beginning, but I realized it was a lot because of my head getting in the way, but not wanting to shut up.
Yeah. Well, I have a mind like that, you see, so I'm very familiar with it. So I'm really comfortable with working with people with their active minds and helping them settle them down. An intervention that I do, if we can get to talk with the person's mind, and that can happen, then I encourage the mind to go sit in Archangel Michael's lap.
Oh, cool.
And if they'll do that, it will become a totally different experience than the mind ever
Wow.
thought could happen.
Wow.
And I used to do that with my mind, I still do, and my mind was so resistant. My Archangel Michael, who can't violate free will, however, he would hold on to my mind tightly. So it was not easy for him to jump out of his lap. But that can be a very powerful step, because once we get the mind there, then they're in the light, and then there's an ease and a comfort, and it becomes a very different session.
Wow. So for the meditation you get us today, how often should we do this? Like daily or weekly or?
Whatever feels right to you. Some people will want to do it daily. Some people will not have that kind of time and can do it 3 times a week or once a week. Whatever feels right. I'm encouraging you to listen to your intuition. What it tells you will work best for you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Do soul agreements ever get in the way and sabotage you? Like you're wanting to progress, and you've taken them to a state, and then someone who's in their soul group, oh God, I can't believe it's them person there. Does that sometimes keep them from progressing because they're feeling obligated to someone in their group? Does that make sense?
I think what I'm thinking is, at that meta level, there's an understanding about an agreement and not a sense of obligation. It's a sense of agreement. It's the human part of us that puts it on and turns it into an ought to, or an obligation, or a supposed to, or a should. So at that meta level, that I don't think that happens there. The trick is bringing it back and holding on to that meta level understanding that this person who's driving you nuts and you want to strangle on certain days is really doing it because it's an agreement to teach you some certain things. So hopefully it gives you more of an understanding, and in that, more of a comfort with that relationship, and you don't get nearly as provoked, I guess would be the word I'd use.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Anybody else got questions? Everybody's thanking you. So thank you for coming, everybody. This is incredible.
Yeah, we've had great questions.
They're amazing people, really, and a lot of
Questions.
new ones too. I don't
Well,
know.
can I ask one more question? I want to know, has there ever been a session you've done, Doug, where you're like, did not expect the person to go into a life? Like, have you ever had like somebody have a past life regression where you were like, whoa, that person was, Jesus Christ, or something like that? What would be your one experience that you would say was probably the most surprising session you've had?
You get yes. I mean, sometimes you get big lives, and they're not known to them either. And they're just exciting and fun. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And it's very interesting. And I mean, how can I not? It's fun. And the trick is to take that understanding in that life and then make sense out of it. Why are they understanding that now today? What's the purpose in that? In other words, it has to have relevancy in this life, or it has no purpose. So it's really helpful to then understand, okay, you have this big life. How does that thread through today? Why is that relevant? Why is that important? And there'll be answers to that, but that's part of, because it has something to do with their path. It's showing them something about what they have the capacity to do, or something like that, but you have to thread it through.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that. So if someone had a almost like a Jesus Christ type of life, and then this life he's not aware, does that mean the regression, or yeah, how do we explain that?
My sense is people who have really, really large lives have some sense of that. In truth, I think they have an inkling. They may not want to believe it. And we're not talking about Jesus Christ. We're talking about, but big lives. And they have a sense, but our ego says, you're making that up. You're being grandiose. That's what our ego does with that. So we have to sort out if that's an ego thing, or if in fact it's the truth, and why are they showing that to them now? And this, why are they even showing it to them? In other words, there's got to be purpose behind it that relates to their path and purpose today. But they usually have some sense of it. It's not totally unknown to them, even though they may not know the specifics.
Okay, we've got Jen next, and then Kat.
Okay, thanks. So I'm actually would love to piggyback a little bit on Kendara's last question about the agreements. I'm curious, are you talking about like an agreement with another individual soul in a previous life that affects your relationship in the current life?
Well, it would be an agreement with a soul in relation to this life. In other words, the agreements are made relevant to this life. You may have had relationships with that soul in other lives, but the agreement will be specific to this life. And it may, they're also, and their agreements, they're usually agreements with the soul, and they're also with higher selves and soul council. So there's lots of different beings involved in any of these agreements.
Very cool. And you think they're very conscious agreements as opposed to more of a like cause and effect sort of unconscious process?
Well, we may not have any consciousness of it at all. In fact, I think most of soul agreements we don't have any consciousness of, honestly. And it only becomes apparent sometimes in retrospect. Oh, that must have been a soul agreement. That was amazing that I stayed with that in that way. Yeah, I would say that they are agreements that are consciously made between souls. It doesn't mean we bring that through in a conscious way as human beings.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That was a great question, Jen. I guess that Kat has a question for you.
Okay.
Actually, it was more like of a I guess proof statement of what you just said, the last part about people having grandiose lives before and not realizing it. Yeah. I did some service work. I live here in California, and I did some service work for the city of Paradise, California, that burned in 2018 from the campfire. And at that time, I wasn't on my spiritual pathway that I am now, but I did have like a shamanic kind of vision of what I was supposed to go do. And so I went and did it and almost lost my life in the process of doing it. But more recently, I've had some other encounters, let's just say that, because I'm not really sure at this point where it came from, because I've taken so many different things that did verify that I was a tribal leader of some sort before and went through something similar with my own people, and in fact died in the process of that. So my encounter that almost took my life this time mimicked the one that did take my life that time, and the work that I did for the people that I had no relation to this time was exact almost for what I did for my tribe then. But at the time I had no idea. I found this out about like 2 weeks ago.
No, I get that. That's exactly how it's usually in retrospect. It's rarely during.
Yeah, I had no desire to discover whether it was during at the time, but my current journey has exposed all kinds of stuff to me, and
yes,
yeah, that was part. So it makes a lot of sense now to me now. Which
yeah, it puts things into a much different perspective when you go, oh, okay, that was an agreement I made with so and so, or I was in agreement that I was going to do that role. And that was important. I had to finish something from that other life. I mean, it comes to you, but again, it's usually retrospective.
Yeah, they say hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah, it is.
That was really interesting, Kat. Thank you. Trista's got a question for you.
Okay.
I was just curious about, did you call it the soul family? That was the other group that you might encounter, like that you've made agreements with. Is that what you call that?
Well, you make agreements with different souls. Some of them may well be from your soul family, your primary soul group. Not necessarily.
Right. So would any of those people also be maybe soulmates as well?
Possibly. Not necessarily
Because I
again.
know that we have many.
Yes. So, I mean, I can tell you that beings who are in a soul group have an automatic comfort with each other they might not have with others. So you may meet somebody where you know them, but you've never met them.
Right.
And there's a soul, in my mind, there's a soul connection piece, whether they're part of your soul group or not. There's a soul connection there. You've had other lives together, something else.
Right. Yes, because I actually did just meet somebody where it felt like that for sure. Like instant connection, like totally comfortable, like I've known him forever. And so yeah, I was just kind of curious if it can be either or.
Yeah, and it's fun for me, it's always fun to try and figure out what I'm always wanting to know, what's the story behind this?
Right. Yeah, me
Why
too.
do I, so I poke and prod spirit, and needless to say, they poke and prod right back.
Well, hey, balance.
And if I meant to know now, they'll tell me, and if I'm not, they won't. But that's
right. Yes. Yep. Exactly.
right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
We're about finished, but Charity, thank you for being my lovely assistant. You were incredibly helpful. Everybody, thank you for your amazing, amazing questions. And Doug, I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people coming because I'm about ready to sign up to get another session with you as well.
Well, there you go.
I mean, just so good. Yeah, everybody, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful to do.
Appreciate you. Charity said there's a link, awkwardly. Do you know when that'll be coming up, Charity, the tape for this? Like, you're muted. Well, awkwardly.
If you're a member, you get it a week early, but if not, it should be up probably about a week from now.
And it's awkwardlyzen.com, and that's the link.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.